Welcome to the mini book podcast, Proof of Christ edition.
Today we're looking at a really powerful book.
We are. It's titled, Is God Real? And the author is Lee Strobel.
A name many will probably recognize.
Oh, absolutely. Now, we thank you for listening, and please consider subscribing for future content.
It really does help us continue to bring these discussions to you.
And we have to say, after hearing this podcast, we would encourage you to go out and purchase this book and support the author.
It's definitely one for the bookshelves. It's packed with information. But Strobel just has this journalist's gift for making it so accessible.
He really does. And just a quick disclaimer before we get rolling. The voices come from AI, but the content comes straight from the book.
And we feel that this is a great way to learn why Jesus Christ is God.
And honestly, that is the big question, isn't it? It's the one that just sits there underneath everything else.
It is the ultimate question. I mean, it frames everything. If God is real, that changes everything.
And if he isn't, that also changes everything.
Right. And Strobel, he points out something incredible right at the start of the book. He says that online search engines get the query, is God real? About 200 times every single second.
Wait, 200 times a second?
A second.
I can't even do the math on that. That's over 17 million times a day.
It is. It just shows this massive collective hunger for an answer. We're told we live in a secular age, but millions of people are typing that question, hoping for something to type back.
And that's what makes Lee Strobel such a perfect guide for this. He wasn't always a believer.
Not at all. He was the opposite, a committed atheist.
Right. He was the legal editor for the Chicago Tribune, a hard-nosed, skeptical journalist. He needed facts, evidence that could stand up in court.
Which is exactly how he approached this. He treated it like a case to be investigated.
Yeah.
So this book, Is God Real?, is him putting on that detective hat and interviewing a whole slate of experts.
PhDs in science, history, philosophy, the heavy hitters.
Exactly. To see if the case for God, and specifically the case for Jesus, actually holds up.
And that approach is so helpful because we're not starting with feelings or, personal experiences. We're starting with evidence.
Logic, science, history. But before we get into all that, Strobel uses this brilliant analogy to set the stage for how we should even think about proof.
Oh, the bottle of water. I love this.
It's so simple and effective.
Because I think people get really hung up on that word proof. They want absolute 100% certainty.
Which is almost impossible in real life.
So imagine this. We're out hiking. It's a hot day. You're incredibly thirsty.
Okay, I'm with you.
And I offer you my bottle of water. Now, can you prove with absolute mathematical certainty that I haven't poisoned it?
Well, no, of course not. I don't have a chemistry lab in my backpack. I haven't watched its every move from the factory, so no, absolute proof is impossible.
Exactly. And if you demanded that level of proof for everything, you'd die of thirst. You'd never eat a meal, get in a car, trust anyone.
So what do I do instead? You look at the evidence. You know me, I'm your friend. You check the cap, the seal isn't broken. You look at the water itself, it's clear.
So I gather all the available data.
The cumulative evidence, yes. And based on that sufficient evidence, you make a rational decision.
I take a step of faith and drink the water.
You take a step of faith. And that's the key difference Strobel draws between absolute proof and sufficient evidence. We are looking for enough evidence to make faith a rational, warranted step, not a blind leap in the dark.
It's a step into the light based on what we can see and know.
Precisely. And so he builds this case, piece by piece, starting with the biggest picture possible.
The universe itself.
Right, section 1, the cosmos. And for this, he interviews a philosopher and theologian, Dr. William Lane Craig.
And they get into a field that sounds pretty intimidating, cosmology. Can we break that down for anyone who might be a bit rusty on their science terms?
For sure. It's actually quite simple. Cosmology is just the study of the origin and the development of the universe.
So it asks the big question, how did all of this get here?
Exactly. Did it have a beginning, or has it just always existed?
And Dr. Craig uses this argument. It's called the Kalam cosmological argument. It sounds ancient.
It is. It's an old philosophical argument, but it's been supercharged with modern scientific discoveries. And it's so powerful because it's built on a really simple three-step logic.
Okay, let's walk through it. What's step 1?
Premise 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause.
That seems, well, obvious. It feels like common sense. Things don't just pop into existence from nothing.
Right. If you came home and there was a brand new car in your driveway, you wouldn't just think, oh, it must have just materialized out of thin air.
No, I'd assume someone, a person or a factory made it and put it there. There was a cause.
From nothing, nothing comes. It's a foundational principle. If things could just pop into being from nothing, why doesn't it happen all the time? Why don't we see rabbits appearing out of nowhere?
Okay, premise one feels very solid. What's premise two?
Premise two is where all the modern science comes in. The universe began to exist.
Now that's interesting because for a long time, didn't a lot of scientists believe the universe was eternal? The steady state theory?
They did. Even Einstein was initially in that camp. The idea of a beginning sounded too much like creation, too religious. But the evidence in the 20th century just became overwhelming.
What was the main evidence?
Well, there were several lines. First was Edwin Hubble's discovery that the universe is expanding. All the galaxies are flying away from each other.
So if you rewind the tape.
Exactly. If you go backward in time, everything gets closer and closer together until it all converges on a single point of infinite density, a beginning.
A Big Bang.
The Big Bang. And then there's the second law of thermodynamics.
Remind us what that one is.
It's the law of entropy. It basically says that in a closed system, like the universe, things are running down. Usable energy is constantly being lost. It's like a wind-up clock that's slowly ticking down.
So if the universe had been here forever, for an infinite amount of time,
the clock would have wound down an infinite time ago. All the stars would be burned out. The whole universe would be cold and dead. The fact that the lights are still on proves that someone only wound the clock a finite time ago.
the universe had a start date.
It did. The scientific consensus is overwhelming on that point.
Okay, so if premise one is whatever begins to exist has a cause, and premise two is the universe began to exist, then the logical conclusion is
Therefore, the universe has a cause.
simple, clean. But this is where the skeptic in me goes, okay, a cause, but how do you get from a cause to God? That feels like a huge leap.
It does, and that's the most fascinating part of the argument. You have to analyze the nature of that cause. What must it be like?
Okay, so what can we deduce about it?
Well, think about what was created. Space, time, and matter. They all began to exist with the universe. So the cause that created them must exist outside of them.
Meaning the cause must be spaceless
And timeless or eternal.
and immaterial since it created all matter.
Correct. So you're already looking at something that is beyond our typical understanding of the natural world. It can't be a physical process because that would involve space, time, and matter.
And it must be unbelievably powerful.
Inconceivably powerful to bring the entire cosmos into existence from nothing. But then Dr. Craig adds the final crucial attribute. This cause must also be personal.
Personal, as in a mind, a conscious agent, not just some quantum force.
Precisely. And his logic here is really tight. He asks you to think about two kinds of explanations for things. There are scientific explanations, which involve laws and initial conditions.
Like water freezes because the temperature dropped below 0 degrees Celsius.
Yes. And then there are personal explanations, which involve an agent choosing to act.
Like the water in the pot is boiling because I chose to turn on the stove.
Exactly. Now, if the cause of the universe were just an impersonal mechanical set of conditions, like the temperature being eternally cold, then the effect, the universe, would have to be just as eternal as the cause.
Right. If the cause was always on, the effect would have always been on.
But we know the universe had a beginning. It wasn't always on. So how do you get a temporal effect, something that starts, from an eternal, timeless cause?
I see where you're going.
The only way is if the cause is a personal agent with free will, a mind that can exist eternally and then freely choose to create. Let there be light. It's a decision.
So a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, incredibly powerful, personal creator.
And as Dr. Craig says, that is a pretty good description of what people have historically meant by the word God.
That really does bridge the gap. It's not just a blind assertion. It's a logical deduction based on the nature of the effect.
It is. And Strobel sees this as the foundational evidence. But then he moves on. He says, okay, the universe exists, but let's look at how it exists.
This brings us to the next section. The universe needs a fine-tuner.
Right. Here he interviews a physicist, Dr. Michael Strauss, and this is where the numbers just get mind-boggling.
We're talking about the argument from design, or what's called the fine-tuning argument.
Yes. It's the observation that the fundamental constants and quantities of nature, things like the strength of gravity, the mass of a proton, are balanced on a razor's edge for life to exist.
They aren't just random numbers. They seem to be dialed in to a specific value.
And not just dialed in, but dialed in with a precision that is just. It's hard to get your head around. If any of these values were altered by just a tiny, tiny fraction, the universe would be hostile to life.
Give us some examples, something concrete to help us feel the weight of this.
Okay, Strauss's go-to example is the expansion rate of the universe coming out of the Big Bang. It's governed by what's called the cosmological constant.
Right. If it expanded too fast.
Matter would have just flown apart too quickly for gravity to pull it together. No galaxies, no stars, no planets, no people.
Yeah.
Just a thin, cold soup of particles.
And if it had expanded too slowly.
Gravity would have won, and the whole universe would have collapsed back in on itself almost immediately in a big crunch.
So it had to be just right. Like Goldilocks?
Just right is an understatement. The precision required has been calculated to 1 part in 10 to the power of 55.
Okay, stop. 10 with 55 zeros after it? My brain can't even picture that number.
Nobody's can. It's astronomical. Strauss uses an analogy to try and illustrate it. Imagine you have a target, just 1 inch wide.
Got it.
Now, imagine covering the entire North American continent with dimes.
Okay. That's a lot of dimes.
Now stack those dimes until they reach the moon.
You're kidding.
I'm not. Then do that for 1 billion other continents of the same size.
This is insane.
Now, somewhere in that unimaginably vast pile of coins, hide 1 single dime that's painted red.
Okay.
The odds of the cosmological constant being what it is by chance are the same as a blindfolded person reaching into that cosmic pile and picking out the 1 red dime on their very first try.
That's not chance. If someone did that, you wouldn't say, wow, they got lucky. You'd say, the game is rigged.
You would infer design. You'd know someone guided their hand. And that is just one of dozens of these finely tuned constants. The cumulative odds are just beyond comprehension.
It's staggering. But Dr. Strauss brings up another really interesting point that flips a common skeptical argument on its head. The smallest universe idea.
Yes, I love this one. The common objection is, if God made this all for us, why is the universe so huge? It's so big and empty. Seems like a waste of space.
Right. If the play is about humanity, why is the stage 1 billion light years across?
But Strauss explains that, based on the laws of physics, a universe has to be this old and this big to support life.
Why is that?
Because the elements necessary for life, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, they weren't created in the Big Bang. The Big Bang only made hydrogen, helium, and a little lithium.
Heavier elements are made inside stars, right?
Exactly. They're forged in the nuclear furnaces of stars over billions of years, and then those stars have to explode as supernovae to scatter those elements across the cosmos so they can form new stars and planets.
So you need billions of years of cosmic history just to cook the ingredients.
You do. And since the universe has been expanding for all those billions of years, by the time you have the necessary building blocks for even one life-bearing planet, the universe is necessarily going to be billions of light years across.
So it's not wasteful. It's actually the smallest and most efficient factory it could possibly be to produce us.
That's the argument. The size is a feature, not a bug.
Okay, but what about the big counter-argument? The one you always hear? The multiverse.
The multiverse, yes. The idea that maybe there's an infinite number of universes, each with different physical laws, and we just happen to live in the one that got lucky.
The ultimate lottery ticket argument.
Right. And Strauss says, look, first of all, there is zero empirical observable evidence for other universes. It is a purely philosophical or mathematical concept. It's an article of faith for an atheist.
This is not really science at that point.
It's metaphysics. But second, and more importantly, even if a multiverse-generating machine existed, that machine itself would have to be incredibly complex and finely tuned to be able to produce universes in the first place.
So you haven't solved the design problem, you've just pushed it back one level.
Exactly. Who designed the universe maker? The most straightforward, logical conclusion from the evidence is that there is a designer.
A cosmic fine-tuner.
An intelligence that set the dials with life in mind.
Okay, let's just take a breath and recap where we are. From cosmology, we have a personal creator. From physics, we have a brilliant designer who seems to care about life.
It's a powerful cumulative case.
But it's still a little generic, isn't it? I mean, this could be the god of deism who just wound up the clock and walked away.
Yeah.
How do we get from this cosmic designer to the God of the Bible, to Jesus?
That is the perfect question, and it's exactly where Strobel goes next. Section 3. He needs to narrow the focus. And for this, he interviews a philosopher named Chad Meister.
And Meister uses a tool that I found really helpful. He calls it the Apologetics pyramid.
It's a great visual. It helps organize the search for truth in a logical progression, from the broadest claims to the most specific.
Because let's build this pyramid from the ground up. What's the foundation? Level 1.
Level 1 is simply truth. Before you can argue about which religion is true, you have to agree that objective truth actually exists.
This is pushing back against that postmodern idea of that's your truth and this is my truth.
Exactly. Meister establishes that truth is grounded in reality. He uses the law of non-contradiction. Two opposite statements cannot both be true at the same time and in the same way.
God can't both exist and not exist. Jesus can't be the only way to salvation and also just one of many ways.
Right. We have to be seeking the truth, not just a truth that makes us feel comfortable.
Okay, solid foundation. We've established truth is real. What's the next level up on the pyramid?
Level 2 is worldviews. Here, Meister puts the three major worldviews to the test: atheism, pantheism, and theism.
We've already seen her atheism, the belief in no God, struggles to account for the origin and design of the universe.
It does. It also struggles to ground objective morality, which we'll get to later.
What about pantheism? That's the idea that everything is God, right? The universe and God are the same thing.
Yes, or that the physical world is an illusion, a concept you find in some Eastern religions. Meister argues this fails because it contradicts our most fundamental experiences. I know that I exist as a distinct person. I know that evil is real, not just an illusion.
And if everything is God, then cancer is God and cruelty is God. It makes morality impossible.
It does. So the worldview that best explains reality as we experience it is theism, the belief in a personal God who created the world but is distinct from it.
Theism survives the test. So we move up to level 3.
Level 3 is revelation. Okay, so a theistic God exists. Has this God communicated with us? Has he spoken?
And this is where we start looking at the specific claims of different theistic religions.
Correct. Meister argues that the historical evidence for the Judeo-Christian scriptures, particularly the New Testament documents, is far superior to any other claimed holy book.
And that leads us to the absolute pivot point of the whole pyramid, level 4.
Level 4, the resurrection. This is it. This is the linchpin.
And in the very top, level 5, is the gospel, the message of Jesus, but it all hangs on the resurrection.
Everything. This is the moment the investigation moves from general God to the specific claim: Jesus is God.
And this is so central to our focus today. This is the proof of Christ. So, section 4 in our discussion, Strobel interviews a historian, Dr. Michael Licona, specifically on the evidence for the resurrection.
Oh, this is so critical. Licona isn't coming at this as a theologian assuming the Bible is true. He approaches it as a secular historian would.
He uses what he calls the 3 R's.
Yes. Relevant sources, responsible method, and restrained results.
Break that down. What does he mean by responsible method?
He means he won't use circular reasoning. He won't say, the Bible is the word of God, therefore what it says about the resurrection is true. Instead, he treats the Gospels as ancient historical documents, just like he would treat documents from Tacitus or Josephus.
And he uses an approach that I think is just brilliant for cutting through all the noise, the minimal facts approach.
It's the strongest possible way to build a historical case. He says, I am only going to use facts that are so well attested historically that they are accepted by the vast majority of scholars who study this period, including skeptical and atheist scholars.
So he's not arguing from controversial points. He's building his case on common ground.
Exactly. A foundation that even the critics have to grant.
So let's lay out these facts. What is minimal fact number 1?
Jesus died by crucifixion.
This isn't really debated by serious historians, is it?
No, it's one of the most certain facts of ancient history. We have it in all 4 Gospels, in the writings of Paul, and in non-Christian sources like Tacitus and Josephus. The old swoon theory that Jesus just fainted on the cross is completely discredited.
Roman executioners were experts at their job.
They were professionals. Their own lives were on the line if a prisoner escaped. They made sure he was dead. The spear in the side confirms it. Jesus was dead and buried. Fact 1 is solid.
Okay, minimal fact number 2.
Jesus' disciples believed that they saw the risen Jesus.
Now, notice the careful wording there. The fact isn't they saw him, but that they sincerely believe they saw him. How do we know that?
We know it from their transformation. 1 minute, they are a terrified, defeated group of followers hiding behind locked doors, their leader dead. The next, they are boldly proclaiming in the very streets of Jerusalem that Jesus is alive, and they are willing to suffer and die for that claim.
And they did. Tradition holds that almost all of them were martyred.
That's the key. People will die for what they believe to be true, but no one will die for what they know is a lie. If the disciples had stolen the body and made the whole thing up, they would know it was a hoax.
And when the authorities were torturing them, one of them would have cracked.
Okay, stop. We hid the body in Peter's backyard.
But not one of them ever recanted. They went to their deaths, proclaiming they had seen, touched, and eaten with the risen Jesus. That proves their sincere belief.
That is a powerful psychological point. Okay, what's fact number 3? The conversion of the skeptic, Paul. At the time, he was Saul of Tarsus.
He wasn't a friend of Christianity. He was its greatest enemy.
He was a persecutor. He was hunting Christians down, having them arrested, even killed. Then suddenly, he does a complete 180 and becomes the greatest missionary and theologian the church has ever known.
Why? What could possibly cause such a radical change?
His own testimony, which he was willing to die for, was that he encountered the risen Jesus on the road to Damascus. He had nothing to gain from this conversion. He lost his power, his prestige, his safety. The best explanation is that it really happened.
Okay, so we have the followers and we have an enemy. What's the last minimal fact?
The conversion of another skeptic. James, the brother of Jesus.
His own brother. The Gospels are honest that during Jesus' ministry, his own family thought he was out of his mind.
Right, they were probably embarrassed. There goes our brother Jesus again, causing a scene. They did not believe he was the Messiah.
But something changed.
Something big changed. After the crucifixion, James becomes the leader of the Jerusalem church. He is so respected that even Paul defers to him, and he too is eventually martyred for his faith in his brother as the Son of God. What changed him? The early church creed Paul quotes in 1 Corinthians 15 says, Jesus appeared to James.
So you have these bedrock facts. Jesus died, his tomb was empty, and his followers, his enemy Paul and his skeptical brother James, were all convinced they'd seen him alive afterward.
Now, the historian has to ask the question, what is the best explanation that accounts for all these facts?
The usual skeptical explanation is hallucinations.
It's the most common one offered, but it fails badly. First, as we know from modern psychology, hallucinations are private, individual events. They happen in one person's mind.
You can't have a group hallucination. I can't share my dream with you.
Exactly. Yet the sources report Jesus appearing to groups of people at once, to the apostles, to more than 500 people at one time. A mass hallucination of that kind is medically and psychologically impossible.
And what about the empty tomb?
That's the other huge problem for the hallucination theory. Hallucinations don't make bodies disappear. If the disciples were just seeing things, all the authorities had to do was go to the tomb, produce the body, and the whole movement would have died on day one.
Here he is, folks. Case closed.
But they couldn't, because the tomb was empty.
So when you put all the minimal facts together,
The death, the empty tomb, the appearances to various groups and individuals, the radical transformation of the disciples. Licona argues that the best historical explanation, the one that accounts for all the data, is the one the disciples gave.
that Jesus was actually raised from the dead.
That he was.
And if that's true, I mean, the implications are just cosmic.
They are. Because anyone can claim to be God. Many have. But if you claim to be God and you say, as proof, I will be killed and 3 days later I will rise from the dead, and then you actually do it.
That's the ultimate credential.
It vindicates everything else he said. It's God's stamp of approval on Jesus' identity. It is the proof that he is who he said he was.
That connects it all. The personal creator from the cosmological argument, the fine-tuner from physics, entered human history and proved his identity in a way that is historically verifiable.
That's the case. But Strobel is a good journalist, and he knows that even with all this powerful evidence, people still have roadblocks. They aren't just intellectual barriers, they're emotional.
Yes. And he tackles the two biggest ones in the next section: suffering and hiddenness.
Let's start with suffering. This is the big one for so many people. If there's a good and powerful God, why is there so much pain in the world? For this, Strobel talks to the philosopher Peter Kreeft.
And Kreeft makes a really surprising philosophical point right out of the gate.
He does. He turns the argument on its head. He says that the problem of evil, in a strange way, actually points to the existence of God.
Wait, how does that work? That seems completely backward. The existence of evil proves God.
Think about it. When you complain about evil, what are you doing? You are appealing to a standard. You're saying, this is not how things are supposed to be. This is wrong.
Right. I'm saying there's a standard of good that this suffering violates.
Exactly. But where does that standard of good come from? If there is no God, if we are just the products of a blind, random evolutionary process, there is no objective good or evil.
It's just survival of the fittest. A lion killing a gazelle isn't evil, it's just lunch.
Precisely. In a purely materialistic universe, there's no such thing as injustice, only events. So the very fact that we have this powerful, undeniable sense that some things are truly, objectively wrong, like torturing a child for fun, means we are appealing to a transcendent moral law.
And a moral law implies a moral lawgiver.
That's the argument. Our outrage at evil is a clue that we were made for a world without it. by a God who is perfectly good.
That's a powerful argument for the mind, but it doesn't always soothe the heart when you're in the middle of that pain.
It doesn't. And Kreeft acknowledges that, and that's where he uses the bear of the trap analogy.
Okay, paint that picture for us.
Imagine a hunter finds a bear with its paw caught in a brutal steel trap. The hunter wants to save the bear. To do that, he has to get the bear's paw out. But the only way to release the spring mechanism is to push the bear's mangled paw deeper into the trap for a moment.
Oh, from the bear's point of view, that would be terrifying. It would think the hunter is attacking it, making the pain worse.
Exactly. The bear cannot comprehend the hunter's higher purpose and wisdom. It only experiences more pain and thinks the hunter is its enemy. Kreeft suggests that we are often the bear and God is the hunter. We can't see the reason for the pain he allows or introduces into our lives.
Our perspective is too limited.
Our perspective is finite. But then Kreeft says that Christianity offers something utterly unique and profound in response to suffering.
Which is?
In most other worldviews, God is distant from suffering. He's an impersonal force, or he's watching from on high. In Christianity, God doesn't just give us a solution. He enters into our suffering himself.
Jesus on the cross.
Jesus on the cross. God the Son experiences betrayal, injustice, torture, and death. He doesn't just give us a philosophical answer to suffering. He suffers with us and for us.
I remember the quote from the book, "The answer to suffering is not a word, it's the word," meaning Jesus himself.
That's it. It changes the question from, why is this happening to me, to who is with me in this? And the answer is God.
Okay, that's a powerful response to suffering. What about the other big challenge? Hiddenness. Why isn't God more obvious? Why doesn't he just write his name in the stars?
For this, Strobel interviews Kenneth Samples. And Samples also uses a great analogy, the pitcher and the catcher.
A baseball analogy, I like it.
God is the pitcher. He's constantly throwing the ball. He provides evidence of his existence through creation, through our conscience, through the historical events of Jesus' life.
He's throwing the evidence our way.
Yes. But we are the catcher. And if the catcher has his back turned, or is looking at his phone, or just plain doesn't want to catch the ball, he's going to miss it every time.
So the question isn't, is God hidden, but maybe, are we hiding?
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But there's another reason for God's apparent hiddenness, and it has to do with free will.
Explain that. How does being obvious relate to free will?
If God's existence were as blatant and undeniable as the sun in the sky, a giant face in the clouds booming orders, it would completely overwhelm us.
We wouldn't really have a choice but to obey.
It would coerce our belief. You can't have a genuine loving relationship based on coercion. God wants us to freely choose to love and follow him. So he provides enough light for those who are willing to see, but also enough shadow to allow those who don't want to see to maintain their denial.
It preserves our freedom to choose for or against him. That makes a lot of sense. Love has to be a choice.
It does. And Samples wraps up all the evidence we've talked about with a simple acronym: CLEAR.
Let's run through that. It's a great summary.
C is for cosmos, the column argument for a creator. L is for life, the fine-tuning and the information in DNA. E is for ethics, the objective moral law. A is for abstractions, things like logic and mathematics that work because the universe was made by a logical mind. R is for religion, specifically the evidence for the life, death, and most importantly, the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
It's a powerful, cumulative case. Which brings us to the final section of the book, which is about experiencing God.
Yes, because at the end of the day, this isn't just an intellectual exercise. Strobel interviews Douglas Groothuis about this.
And Groothuis talks about something called veridical experience. Let's break that word down.
Veridical simply means an experience that is truthful, that corresponds to reality. It's the opposite of a hallucination or delusion.
So a genuine encounter.
Yes. And he points out that throughout history and across cultures, millions of sane, rational people have reported having transformative experiences with God. These aren't just vague feelings, they are life-altering encounters.
Strobel shares a few powerful stories in the book. The one that really stuck with me was Nabil Qureshi.
A powerful story. He was a devout Muslim who sincerely wanted to know the truth. He investigated the evidence for Christianity and began to pray, asking God to reveal himself through a dream or vision.
And he had a series of very specific dreams that pointed him directly to Christ.
Yes, it was an experiential confirmation of the intellectual evidence he was discovering. His life was completely changed by it.
And all of this leads to Strobel's final conclusion. It's almost a call to action.
It is. It starts with what he calls the agnostic's prayer. He challenges the reader who is still on the fence.
What's the prayer?
It's simple and honest. God, if you open my eyes to who you really are, then I will open my life fully to you.
That's a fair request, and a dangerous one, because God might just answer it.
He might. And if he does, Strobel presents a simple formula for what comes next. It's an equation. Believe plus receive. Become.
Okay, let's unpack that. Believe.
Believes is the intellectual step. It's assenting to the evidence. It's saying, yes, I believe the evidence points to a creator, a designer, and that Jesus is who he said he was.
It's agreeing that the water bottle is safe to drink.
Exactly. But you can believe the water is safe and still die of thirst. You have to take the next step. Receive.
Receive. This is the personal part.
This is where you actually drink the water. You receive the free gift of forgiveness and relationship that Jesus offers. It's moving from head knowledge to heart trust.
And that leads to the final part of the equation, become.
Believe plus receive equals become. You become a child of God. Your identity fundamentally changes. You are no longer just a cosmic accident, but a beloved, created, redeemed son or daughter of the creator of the universe.
And that really brings us to the final closing thought of the entire book. All of this investigation, the cosmology, the physics, the history, the philosophy,
All of those roads,
they don't just lead to an abstract fact or a philosophical conclusion, they lead to a person.
they lead to Jesus.
It's an incredible journey, from the edge of the universe right down to the empty tomb in Jerusalem.
It is. It really shows that Christian faith is not about checking your brain at the door. It's a faith grounded in reason, evidence, and history.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for listening, and please consider subscribing for future content.
We truly hope this has been a helpful and thought-provoking discussion for you.
And please, tell others about this podcast. If you have a friend who is asking these big questions, maybe share this with them.
And we would love to hear from you. Please suggest in the comments books that you would like to hear in future episodes. We want to know what's on your mind.
Thank you for subscribing and listening.